All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen and aliens that are on vacation on Earth. We're up to week 13 of the pod. We're through week 1 of the NFL season. We're through almost the entire second round of the NBA. We're getting down to the NHL. Baseball's been it's been a crazy week. I texted the boys on Thursday and said, hey, guys, I watched basketball, hockey, football, and baseball today. So that was like a pretty great day. James, how you doing? Week 1 is done. I know you were pumped for football to come back.
Oh my God, you have no idea. I was hanging with Tradon and Eric on Sunday watching football. You should have seen me pregame. I was jumping up and down, getting super excited. And then the Niners played and lost. And then I got super sad, super angry.
Yeah, you brought
it up. Cried on the way home. But other than that, it was fantastic, man.
And I pride myself on the fact that I did not get punched out because I did kind of indulge in the alcohol, and I was kind of annoying. So, James, thank you for not punching my head.
That doesn't sound like
Dude, Tradon got so drunk.
Oh, gosh.
I think Jimmy G threw like one incomplete pass, and James ripped out Tradon's drawer, and like all the silverware flew out all over the ground.
That is
I do remember that happening, but that was
first like incomplete pass.
And then we ate a bunch of ice cream. We ate all of Tradon's ice cream at his house. That was a good time.
Wow.
I just bought it. I didn't even take a bite before. I bought it like 3 days.
It was a gallon of ice cream.
What some awful house guests. So, Tyler, James is obviously like you, where he's going to angry throw things when his team's is not going well.
Yeah.
How you doing over there? Rams week 1 win?
Yeah, definitely wanted to throw things after that Eagles loss. That was horrible. Up 17-0 and then just shit the bed in the second half. That was hard.
Who'd you lose to?
The Washington football team. Did I say
the team that has no name? Got it.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, the one that doesn't have a goddamn name. So that was rough. But then the Rams came back and beat the Cowboys. So that kind of helped finish the day strong for me there. Dodgers lost a rough one last night, so that was rough. But they're winning right now, so hopefully they can hold the lead. But we'll see. But other than that, doing great. Sports are back. I love it.
Eric, you're obviously not doing great down there. How you doing?
Not good. Stressing, and Clippers are collapsing once again in the fourth quarter.
Uh-oh.
This could be probably the worst thing you'd ever want to see your team go through. And I'm going through it.
It is generally astounding how the Clippers now 3 games in a row have sort of crumbled in the second half. We'll kind of update you guys on that as the game goes on. But James, let's start with you. As I mentioned earlier, week 1 of the NFL season is done. Some of our fantasy teams did well. Some of them didn't. How are you feeling? Let's get into the NFL week 1.
All right, guys. So we're going to start with I'm going to focus more on fantasy nowadays because the division previews are now over. So we're going to go through waivers and do waiver wire ads here. So for my segment, it's going to be based off the ESPN leagues, and it's going to be based off of free agents who are on your waiver wire who are less than 50% owned for literally all the leagues because it has a percentage on there. And we're going to go through every single position, quarterback through tight end. Today we're going to start with the quarterback, and it's Gardner Minshew II from Jacksonville. He's my pick of the week this week for a quarterback, and it seems just like, 2 or 3 weeks ago I was just talking shit on him. It was terrible. He wasn't going to do shit. But then he went off and scored 20.8 points. He was projected for 15, and he outscored that tremendously. He's only owned in 14.9% of the leagues right now, and his stat line was crazy, guys. Did you guys see that? He had 1 incomplete pass. He went 19 for 20. He's 95% and threw 3 touchdowns. His quarterback rating was 142.3. The perfect quarterback rating is 158. He was so close to having a perfect quarterback rating. Out of all the quarterbacks, he was the 11th highest scoring QB. He outscored Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz. He outscored all those guys, and he's only owned in 14% of leagues. He plays the Titans in week 2, which is a tough matchup. But then he goes on to face Miami, Cincinnati, Houston, Detroit. The thing about Jacksonville is that they're going to have more negative game scripts, so they'll have to throw way more often, which, is good for him. He's shown last year in a very small sample size, albeit because he's a rookie last year, but he had 21 touchdowns and 6 interceptions last year. That's really good numbers for a rookie quarterback. And he's poised to do that again this year. So, Tyler, I know you don't really have a need for QB right now because you have Deshaun Watson and Cam Newton, but I realized that you've been getting into Bud Light Seltzer recently. Is that enough for you to add Gardner Minshew? Or, I mean, like, what do you think about him as a waiver wire ad?
Ooh, I don't know. But yeah, he was talking the talk with that Bud Light commercial. You know, say, pick me. If you win your fantasy league, you get, what is it, a year's supply of Bud Light. I would probably never drink Bud Light unless it's for some weird drinking game or something like that. But yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, he had a great first week, so we kind of backed up the talk with the whole Bud Light fantasy incentive. So that's something to think about for people who are a little thinned out on QB right now. He could be a good pickup, or at least just for a backup, just in case he continues this. I mean, if he is in the top 10 in fantasy points for quarterback, I mean, I think if he can do what he did last week, I think that's definitely possible. So yeah, for me personally, I'm not really looking at him because I'm pretty good on QBs. But for those, if you have, a quarterback gets injured down the line or you don't have very good depth at QB, like I think this is probably the top QB to look at.
A couple other notable QBs that we could have talked about here is Mitch Trubisky from the Bears. He had 24.3 points, but he's only owned at 2.7% of leagues. He had an awful first three quarters of the game, but then he still managed to get 24 points. I don't know how he did that. The Bears suck. And then Kirk Cousins, Eric's favorite quarterback from Minnesota. He had 21.8 points, but he's only owned in 21.2% of leagues. Moving on to running back here, we have Malcolm Brown from the Rams. He's currently owned in 7.9% of ESPN leagues. He was projected for 5.82 points against Dallas, but he went on to score 26 points. He had 18 carries for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also added 3 receptions and 31 yards on through the air. He was tied for third for most receptions on the team after Robert Woods with 6. So a lot of people didn't trust Malcolm Brown just because you kind of wanted to stay away from the Rams' backfield. They had what Sean McVay termed a 3-headed backfield. So that's between him, Cam Akers, and Darrell Henderson. But as it comes out, Malcolm Brown's the lead back of that 3-headed backfield. Cam Akers only had 14 carries for 39 yards. Darrell Henderson, 3 carries for 6 yards. When you look at snap counts, Malcolm Brown was out there for 60% of snaps. Cam Akers, 33, and Henderson, 5. Right now, the one to trust is Malcolm Brown. He was the 5th highest scoring running back in week 1. His upcoming schedule right now is to the Eagles, who just lost to the football team, the Buffalo Bills, the Giants, and the football team. That's a pretty decent schedule for a running back. Right now, the Rams offense looks like it looked 2 years ago. They did well against the Cowboys. And that means a lot of positive game scripts, which means a lot more running and bleeding the clock out. So, Alex, you have Lev Bell, and you pretty much just lost him for a couple weeks with a hamstring injury. What do you think of Malcolm Brown?
Yeah, Lev Bell. God, what a dumbass fucking pick.
Yeah,
Malcolm
nice
Brown.
try on the trade, by the way.
Yeah, I figured I'd just throw that out there, see what happened. Yeah, for Malcolm Brown, you nailed it. He was out there for a majority of the snaps. We talked about it in the NFC West preview about how awful the Rams offensive line was last year. They looked a lot better against a decent Dallas defense. So if you're looking for a running back if you're an idiot like me and draft Lev Bell, or if you're worried about some of these other running backs, if you got James Conner on your team, he's out for a little bit. Any of these running backs that got off to a slow start and you're looking for someone to pick it up, it does seem 100% like Malcolm Brown is the guy for now. I would keep an eye on it, though. I do think that eventually Cam Akers might be the dude in LA. Primetime game is Sunday night against the Cowboys in a brand new stadium. They maybe wanted to give the share or load share to the veteran. So keep an eye on it, but for sure, Malcolm Brown is a very interesting pickup on the waiver wires this week.
A couple of other notable running backs here is Nyheim Hines from the Colts. He scored 27.3 points and is owned in 34.2% of leagues. He's a pass-catching back, and now that Marlon Mack is out with the torn Achilles, he could see a lot more work behind Jonathan Taylor. And then Jerick McKinnon from the 49ers, 13.4 points. He's owned in 16.1% of leagues. He's a pass-catching back, a third-down back, so if Jimmy G just keeps doing terrible like he did in week 1, he's going to pass down to a running back, and that's more work for him. So if you're in a PPR league, give Jerick McKinnon a look. Moving on to wide receiver here, we got Sammy Watkins out of Kansas City. He's owned in 45.8% of leagues right now, so he almost didn't make the cut. He was projected for 9.25 points, but he ended up with 21.5. He had 7 receptions on 9 targets for 82 yards and a touchdown. He also added 1 carry for 3 yards. He had the highest target share on the team, on the Kansas City Chiefs, the best offense of football. So my biggest concern here is that typically he explodes during week 1. Like, that happens often. In 2019, his week 1 was probably one of the best week 1s in history of fantasy football. He had 9 receptions for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns, which equaled 46.8 points. That's crazy. But for the rest of the season, he only had 91.7 points, which equaled 7.1 per week. He can't sustain. He does a lot week 1, but he kind of falls off towards the end. But I think this year might be a little bit different because of the running game and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Devoting another guy to him means less guys on Sammy Watkins. And there's also the emergence of Demarcus Robinson. He had 3 receptions for 20 yards on 6 targets. He's a threat too. He was the 8th highest scoring wide receiver this week. Snap count-wise, he was out there for 80% of snaps. Tyreek Hill, the number 1 wide receiver on the team, was only out there for 4 more snaps than Sammy Watkins. Looking at his schedule here, he has a tough schedule, man. This Chiefs schedule is rough. You have the Chargers coming up. They don't have Derwin James, and they almost lost to the Bengals, but that's still a decent defense. Then you have Baltimore, tough. New England, they still got Stephon Gilmore, tough. You got the Raiders, easy. And then you go to Buffalo, who also has another really tough defense. I actually think having all these tough defenses is a good thing for Sammy Watkins, mainly because Patrick Mahomes is best QB in the league when it comes to throwing. And teams will start to devote more defenders to Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and CEH, which, that allows Sammy Watkins to draw the 3rd or 4th best corner or safety to defend him, which he'll exploit and do well on. Tradon, your wide receivers straight up did not produce this week. DJ Moore had 9.4 points, T.Y. Hilton had 9.3, and Keenan Allen had 7.7. What do you think of Sammy Watkins as a waiver wire ad? Would you drop someone in your team to add some wide receiver depth?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that I haven't yet. I don't believe I have. I think I'd have a different move in the thing here. But no, I mean, yeah, he brought in he brought in some respectable points, and he kind of does that, like you said, every single season opener. Like that's kind of his thing. But I don't see it worth picking him up. He's going to face a more capable, at least for this week. He's going to face a more capable, corner in back, on the Chargers defense. And I actually am going to use your reasoning for him to be a good option as actually a negative, because I think that Mahomes has just too many weapons. So, and for any given game, so he can have, week to week, I think he has some upside potential. But the fact that he scored 21.5 points this week, he's kind of at that top of his peak. Like, I don't see any upside from there. I only see downside. Could he go sideways? Maybe. But I don't know. I think that Mahomes has just too many options for him to be a big pickup, at least to take off one of my wide receivers there, and and maybe in my deeper end of my roster, maybe later down the road. But for now, I'm just a little too bearish on him still.
Okay. A couple of other notable wide receivers here is Marquez Valdez-Scantling from Green Bay. He had 19.6 points. He's owned in 1.9% of leagues. And Anthony Miller from Chicago. I don't know if you guys just heard, but Allen Robinson wants out. He wants to be traded, which means Anthony Miller might be the number 1 guy in Chicago. That doesn't mean much, but he still put up 17.6 points last week, and he's owned in 37.9% of leagues. Lastly, we're going to go to tight end here, and it's going to be O.J. Howard. That's my pick. He's owned in 4.9% of leagues right now. He's only projected for 4.25 points, but he went off for 13.6 points. He had 4 receptions on 6 targets for 36 yards and a touchdown. He tied for second on the team in targets, right behind Chris Godwin with 7. And that's a Tom Brady-led offense. He actually led the team in red zone targets, though. He had 2 red zone targets, which led the team there. I think people honestly were afraid to draft him because of Gronk and his name value. They thought that Gronk was going to get all the run at tight end, but little did they know that the Bucs run 12 personnel offense as their base formation, which means they have 1 running back, 2 tight ends most of the time. Howard had 6 targets while Gronk only had 3. OJ Howard had the seventh highest score for tight ends. Snap count wise, he was out there for 37 snaps while Gronk was out there for 54. So 17 more snaps. That's actually kind of a big deal, but it's the red zone targets that gets me. It kind of reminds me a lot of Eric Ebron's 2018 season where he finished as the 4th overall tight end and was basically just there to catch touchdowns. That's all he did. He had no other value but to catch touchdowns. His upcoming schedule is Carolina, Denver, Chargers, and Chicago. Eric, Blake Jarwin just tore his ACL. What do you think of OJ Howard as a waiver wire ad?
I actually did have Blake Jarwin, just dropped him. OJ Howard caught 4 out of 6 targets, got 36 yards and a touchdown game 1. It scares me because I have Gronk in one of my other leagues, so I feel like they're just going to veer away from Gronk the more OJ Howard does well. Next game is Tom Brady's home debut in Tampa Bay against a questionable Panthers defense. In other words, look for Howard to go off. Like I said earlier, I think it's going to boost up his confidence if he does go off in this game, and that's going to be threatening for anyone who has Gronk, which I do in one other league. I think Alex has him in our league. So, yeah. Oh, my God. Fucking
He's
good
watching
in the
the Clippers
basket,
game.
dude.
He's having a rough time right now.
Yep, he's not happy. Anyway, some other notable tight ends of note here is Dallas Goedert, who I actually wanted to talk about, but Eric didn't want to because he was like, I had him last year and he didn't do dick for me. That's a quote. Dallas Goedert scored 24.1 points and is owned in 27.2% of leagues. And Logan Thomas from Washington, 13.7 points, owned in 0.5% of leagues. It seems like the Clippers lost. Yep, there goes the jersey. So the last thing you want to do here, guys, I want to go around and ask everybody who their favorite waiver wire pickup is, and it could be somebody I mentioned, or it could be anybody really, and why they picked him. So Tyler, start with you.
Yeah, I picked Robbie Anderson, Carolina Panthers. I just checked his availability. He's only available in about 30% of leagues. So he's a little bit.
He's taken in 70% of leagues.
Correct. So if he's available, look for him. I think he's a solid wide receiver 3 flex option for you. Just the past 3 seasons, averaged 824 yards, 6 touchdowns with the Jets. He's now on the Carolina Panthers. Got 25 points last week in week 1. So if he's available, I would check out Robbie Anderson.
Alex?
I'm sticking with Malcolm Brown. I think he's going to be a big part of that Rams offense that, like you said, looks like the Rams offense of 2 years ago. It all comes down to that offensive line and how much time Malcolm Brown stays on the field compared to those other 2 guys. But Malcolm Brown is available in a high percentage of leagues. So if you can go get him, go get him.
Tradon?
I got a sleeper, boys. I got Benny Snell Jr. for this week. All right. He's going to take the bulk of the snaps for the Steelers, assuming this is all encompassing that James Conner is out. If he's out, forget what I'm saying. Just forget it, okay? Broncos are coming off a rough week against the Titans. He'd make a solid plug-and-play situation. You know, I'm into that plug-and-play, get it going. Benny Snell Jr., baby.
And lastly, Eric.
I got Valdez-Scantling. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a good season, and we saw that game 1. I think Valdez-Scantling will become a big target for him.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. That was my waiver wire segment for this week.
All right. Yeah, crazy NFL week 1 for sure. We'll see how many of these guys get picked up coming into week 2 and see how they perform. When we come back, Eric's talking about golf. We got a big major tournament coming up, so Eric's going to give us the lowdown on that. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back. The US Open is coming up. Eric, you're our golf guy. What do you got on the US Open?
The 2020 US Open is this weekend, starting this Thursday. It'll be the second major tournament of the COVID year. This will be held at the Winged Foot Golf Club in Mamaroneck, New York. I hope I pronounced that right. And this is going to be the 6th time that this course has hosted the major tournament. Some notable holes right off the bat. The 12th hole will be the 6th longest hole in major history. It is 633 yards, par 5. And, of course, fucking DeChambeau earlier when they were talking to him in an interview, they asked him what hole is going to be your best hole. He said 12th hole because he hits the driver far. The 13th hole is another notable hole. It's right after that, and it is a 212-yard par 3. So you're going from the longest hole on the course basically to the shortest hole on the course. In my head, that would fuck me up, but probably in these pro golfer heads, they'll be fine. So odds and players-wise, Dustin Johnson is 8-1. He's been playing the best golf this year. He just won the FedEx Cup, basically winning all these other tournaments. So in a nutshell, you shouldn't take him because he's playing too well. That's just the story of golf. It's way too hard to predict anyways. But second, John Rahm, 11-1. He's also been playing really well. The last major tournament, though, he was number 1. Literally, it lasted 1 week because he shit the bed in that tournament. And that's golf for you once again. Rory, 12-1, been playing bad and shitty. That's why I would actually bet on him to win this tournament. That's golf in a nutshell for you.
I agree. I agree with you on that.
DeChambeau, we got to bring him up. 14-1. He was tied for 4th in the last major, and he actually was leading most of the day, and he trashed it away. Basically like what the Clippers just fucking did in their series. He still hasn't won a major, so that guy always has little tricks up his sleeve. He's a fucking goofball. I'd like to actually see him win the tournament, but we'll see what Tradon thinks in a second. Morikawa is going to be 18-1. He won the first major of this COVID year. He was age 23, and it was his first major ever. Only one other dude to do that at the same age, guy named Tiger Woods. Ever heard of him? Tiger, speaking of him, 28-1. You can never count this guy out. He's probably the best golfer to ever do it. They had him in an interview earlier. He was extremely boring, just talking super general. Whenever he does that, he usually goes off. My last mention of a guy is Tony Finau, 33-1, also never won a major. He's been close like so many fucking times in his career. He's actually going to be my dark horse is who I would pick to win this tournament. Tradon. I saw when I mentioned DeChambeau, you just fucking rolled your eyes, shaking your head. Like, I sent you a video of him earlier in an interview. Did this guy just get you rattled?
Dude, my issue with this guy is he has a lot of confidence for someone who just can't seem to finish. Oh, he hasn't won a major tournament. And you know what? You got to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's hard to win a major tournament. It's hard to win anything in this damn game. It is. I will go down saying it is the hardest sport in history. I mean, it is the hardest sport to play. And so there is, in terms of the mental, physical, all that kind of stuff, the mental mostly. And the guy, I'm his interview here, and the guy is all about hitting these long bombs. He doesn't give a crap about the rough. He doesn't give a crap about anything besides using his length to get him, far. And I think we saw, that first week that we held this podcast, he won that tournament. But ever since then, he just hasn't been able to crack, I don't think, a top 5, at least maybe a couple times, but nothing of note. He's getting beat by guys that drive it like 287. I mean, Colin Morikawa, for example. I know that my boy DJ bombs the ball, but DJ has a nice fade that it ends up on the fairway, 70% of the time. My issue with DeChambeau is he's in the rough like 80% of the time I'm watching the motherfucker. So I don't know. I think he needs to be knocked down a peg. Also, if there's fire ant on the court, count him out. He's done. No, but seriously, my issue with the guy is he has a big head and he doesn't have, like, there's no room for it yet. You see more humble, you see more humility in a Colin Morikawa, who at the age of 21 or 23, won his major already. I mean, that to me is the type of player that I like to watch. He's tough to like, and I know you like him. I love watching him bomb the ball, but I just don't like his antics. So I think he's going to learn that you need a little bit more accuracy to get far. And look at the field. You're up against DJ, who's playing unbelievable golf right now. Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, he was always in the top 10, seems like. So to name a few, and then Rory actually had a pretty strong PGA championship towards the end. He actually gave him a run for their money. He was just too far back to start. So I think there's too many big names ahead of him that it's going to be tough for him unless he can actually play golf.
It's a game of accuracy, trying to get the ball in the hole, not trying to drive it the farthest. There's some other stupid tournament for that. Yes. So if he wants to do that, he could join that fucking tournament where no one gives a fuck about it. James, you actually all of a sudden do give a fuck about golf. What things have you noticed that you actually like that make you want to watch golf, such as a major tournament this weekend?
Well, I started golfing about 2 months ago here, and it's a lot of fun. So watching the major tournaments shows me how real professional golfers carry themselves on a golf course. It shows me just different ways to hit the ball, their form and everything, how competitive they are. It's fun to watch. So just watching them, I need to learn as much as I can, as fast as I can if I want to compete with you guys. So I just watch that. I literally just watch them hit the ball, and I try to mimic that when I go play myself. And it's not as good as getting a lesson by any means. So if anybody wants to get into golf, don't do what I'm doing. But it's definitely a lot of fun to watch. Very competitive. It's fun to talk shit to you guys because I actually know what you guys are saying now. Like fade, cuts, like all that stuff and big names. I wouldn't have never known DeChambeau or Tony Finau before getting into golf, but now I do. And so I think it helps me culturally too. That's what
James,
I like.
does it make you feel nice when you see someone like Justin Thomas or DJ just shank it right into the woods? It just makes you feel like they're 100%. Just like us sometimes.
Yeah, man, that's like 90% of my shots. That's cool.
It's like, okay, they do it too.
Yeah, exactly. They're human. It's awesome.
Yes, and speaking of a guy that can make golf exciting, Tyler, not you, but Tiger Woods. Tyler, I want you to tell me though about how is Tiger going to find a way to get this to get this major? Because last year everyone counted out in the Masters, and he had a phenomenal Sunday to win it.
Yeah, Tiger Woods, man, he's the reason why I started liking golf, why I started playing golf. I mean, he's gonna be the guy I always root for. I'm a Tiger fan for life. When it comes to this particular tournament, Tiger Woods mentioned that this winged foot golf course is one of the top 3 most difficult he's ever played in his life. And that's saying a lot because he's played a lot of golf. So that doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence. He's played there twice with major tournaments before. He placed 29th in 1997 at the PGA Championship. And then he missed the cut for the first time in his career at this course during the 2006 US Open. So he doesn't have a lot of good performances at this course. He hasn't performed so super well this year yet. His best finish was 27th at the PGA Championship. So I'm not super confident with Tiger Woods at all. But that being said, he's the greatest golfer in our lifetime. If anyone can pull off a comeback, it'd be him. As you mentioned last year at the Masters, I think he shocked everyone and won that tournament. So for him, I think the roughs on this course are not easy if he can try and stay out of the rough a lot. And then also he mentioned that his putting this year has not been very good. So if he can improve on his putting and he can put all together for 4 rounds, I think he has a shot. But to be honest with you, as a Tiger fan and with what he's telling me, he's not super confident with it. So I don't know if I'm very confident with it either, but hey, it's Tiger Woods. Anything can happen.
Yeah. Could be a tactic of him to just get everyone to lay off his dick.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Alex, last question. I know you hate golf, not a big golf guy. How many
100%.
beers would it take? I know you love beers, though. How many beers would it take for you to watch the last 2 holes of a nail-biting major golf tournament on a Sunday afternoon with everything on the line for those 2 pro golfers?
Well, so for me, ideally, it'd be one of you 4 that are buying the beers. If it's my own beers, I'm not watching golf. Like, I'd rather just be taking a nap, which is probably what's going to happen if golf is on TV anyway. So if you guys are buying, I'm going to need at least 8, probably 2 from each of you for me to care. If not, I'm probably just not going to watch it. Golf. Yeah.
8 Wookiee Jacks.
Yeah, I mean, well, at that point, I'll just be asleep, which is the same thing that'll happen.
Which is
either
what you'd be
way.
You
doing
said you
anyway.
wanted.
Yeah, I'd be doing
You
the
said you
same thing
wanted.
either way. So,
Yeah.
you know what? It should be an interesting tournament. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm gonna be straight up. I won't watch it. I got way more stuff going on. I'm just not gonna watch golf. But feel free. Yeah, I will. I do have to take naps. Naps are choice,
important.
James. I don't want to hear.
He's like
shit.
80 years old over there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So that's my take on that.
Yep, and I mean that's all I got for you on golf this week. We got fucking 4 more days to see how it goes, Thursday through Sunday.
Oh.
All right. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. If you guys bet on it, I hope for the best for you guys. I guess I don't know. We'll see what happens for you guys. When we come back, we're gonna give Tyler's gonna give his oh shit moments because we're getting down to it. So it's no longer oh damn as James so lovingly coined it last week. We'll be right back, guys. All right, boys, we are back. Before Tyler gets into his oh shit moments, we got to talk about what just happened in the NBA real quick. Eric, I'm very sorry. Plug your ears, leave the room, whatever you got to do. The Clippers did just lose Game 7 to the Nuggets. That's back-to-back series. The Nuggets have come back from 3-1, which is pretty impressive. We can maybe get into this more next week. But for now, Tyler, let's hear your oh shit moments for the this past week in baseball.
Oh, shit. We got 2 weeks left in the season. James, I guess you kind of forced the change of my title of my segment, but I'm rolling with it.
We'll think later.
I like it. All right, so starting off at number 5, MLB announced that they are banning alcohol from postseason celebrations in the clubhouse. MLB is known to be one of those sports that kind of probably does it maybe too much for some, but it's super fun to watch. And for me, I'm personally going to miss it a lot. Just gallons and gallons of champagne and beer flying to the clubhouse, guys just letting loose after a division clinching win or a World Series or whatever it is. I understand the decision. You know, you're increasing the risk of potentially spreading the virus with all the alcohol. So it's a little weird. I think that there could be a way to figure it out without having to worry about it. But I understand with the times, I guess I get it, but I personally don't love this rule. So I kind of asked all you guys, if you're going to be bummed not getting to see those team celebrations. Alex, I'll start with you.
Kinda. I mean, especially with the new playoff format, like if you win that first series of, you win the first 2 games, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of weak to just start, popping champagne everywhere. Like you won 2 games, especially if you're the 1 seed, like you're playing a team that realistically would never have made the playoffs to begin with. I mean, I'll miss it, if when the teams get into the later rounds, there's always clutch, just drunk as fuck players giving interviews, which is super funny.
Yeah.
But to be honest, like,
Tradon, what do you got?
Well, first of all, forgive me for being new, but they crack champagne after every round that they win?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, that's overkill.
Yeah.
So I guess I won't really care that they won't be able to do it early on because FYI, they really only give out 1 World Series a year, and that's what you're actually playing for, but I digress. For the World Series, that's ridiculous. That's unbelievable to me. I'm upset by it because there's no science there.
Thank you, dude. That makes 0 sense. Zero.
I don't know. Forgive me again if I'm wrong here, but aren't they still getting tested daily?
Every other day.
Every other day. So they have to clear the ability to play. I'm pretty sure if you're negative and you're cleared to play, are you gonna get it from the champagne? Like that's what I don't get. Like you're already. That's what I mean. That's what I think it's the science behind it that I don't understand.
Isn't alcohol and hand sanitizer anyways? And cleaning products?
Basically.
Not quite the level that you need, but I don't know. I think the science behind it is questionable at best. But again, That's me. Although I won't miss it if they're not going to do it during this other rounds because you haven't even won anything yet. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, baseball does get some backlash about how often they celebrate, which I get from a certain perspective. I can see. I mean, this year is going to be so different because there's so many more rounds in the playoffs and there's so many more teams in it. But normally, winning your division after 162 games is a really big deal because getting that and you're guaranteed a playoff series. So I understand it for that, and I kind of understand it for winning the league championship series because it's more of a tradition kind of thing. Because it used to be just the best team from the AL and the best team in the NL met in the World Series. So there was kind of a tradition there to celebrate that league championship, and of course obviously World Series you've got to do it. But I agree with you, the science seems a little weird. I don't know if there's a way to test the bottles of champagne that come in for COVID, but we'll see. James, what do you got on this?
Okay, the rule itself, bullshit, stupid, hate it. Like the fact that even coaches have to wear masks and shit in the dugout or on the side of the field makes zero sense to me. They're with their team all the time. They're getting tested all the time. They're negative. Why do you have to wear a mask? That's stupid. I hate it. Going back to the celebration portion of it, though, practically I never really got the allure of popping champagne and pouring alcohol everywhere. But from a historical standpoint and from like an iconic standpoint, it's fantastic. So I'm going to really miss that because all those big photos of winning championships, like then I remember seeing just Kobe and Michael holding the Larry O'Brien with champagne dripping everywhere and champagne bottles on the ground and everything. That's what I remember. That's iconic. Not having that this year for the World Series sucks 100%. You're taking a piece out of history and you're replacing it with something else based off a stupid rule that has zero backing behind it. I don't agree with it at all.
Yeah, agree, James. Eric, what do you got on this?
Dude, no comment. I'm sorry. I can't really think or put any words to thought right now. There's too much going on in my life at this moment. Sorry. Alcohol is good, and they should allow it. Fucking baseball, of course, they don't allow it. Trash sport. Golf is better. Golf is better.
All right, man. I disagree. And just my final thought on this, I was very fortunate enough to be part of one of these alcohol-induced celebrations with the clubhouse of the baseball team last season, and it is as fun as it looks. So I enjoy watching them, even if I'm not a part of them. So I'm definitely gonna miss it. I think that this rule sucks. Okay, moving on to number 4. Oh shit, the Braves scored 29 runs. They got the memo that it was NFL Week 1. The final score of the game was 29-9 in their win over the Miami Marlins on Wednesday. That was 1 run shy of tying the MLB record, but it is an all-time Braves record. The day before, they scored 0 runs and got 4 hits. Gotta love baseball. You never know what you're gonna get. They scored 11 runs in the second inning. 18 of their 29 runs came via the home run, which tied an MLB record. They hit 7 home runs total in this game, headlined by Adam Duvall, who hit 3 home runs in that game and got 9 RBIs. He had a 3 home run game earlier this season, and he's also got 10 home runs this month already, and it's only September 15th. So that guy's mashing right now. For the Marlins, it is their largest margin of defeat in franchise history. So a pretty wacky game there on Wednesday. Tradon, I want to ask you, if you were attending a game like this, would you be entertained or just bored?
Okay, so I kind of fought with this because I needed to know how the runs kind of were scored. Because if they were just hitting, like if they were dingers, like 29 dingers, I think that'd be kind of boring. and I'll tell you why in a bit. First off, all I want to say, it wasn't the only game that had crazy scoring because the Brewers blanked the Tigers 19-0 that same day, I think. And we gotta call out Jordan Yamamoto, entered into relief for Pablo Lopez in the second, and he really didn't relieve anything. He actually exacerbated the bleeding.
Yep.
Faced 22 batters, allowed 13 hits plus walks. He was charged with 12 earned runs and is the second reliever since 1944 to allow more than 13 runs in an appearance. He entered the game with an 11.42 ERA, which is not good, and he he departed with an 18.26. Like, oh my God. I'm sorry. I don't know if that dude needs to find a different day job because it might be time. I mean, no offense. But yeah. So with that said, I actually would have been excited to see it because I actually think the way that the MLB is going towards, not caring about strikeouts, but caring more about dingers is kind of ruining the fun part of the game. I love when the ball stays in play and you're getting people on base and then you hit the grand slam, or that's how you play on like the video games. You play it like that instead of just smoking the ball out the park all the time. You're seeing more action in the field. And when you're getting 29 runs, you're not hitting 29 dingers. You're getting people on base and you're getting the runs. And that's the kind of stuff that I think it would be exciting to see. I honestly do. I'd be like, this is what I like. This is the kind of stuff I like to see. Poor Marlins, but that is what it is.
Yeah, pretty crazy. You don't see games like that very often. The fact that we had also that 19-run game, like you mentioned, this very same day is pretty nuts. All right, moving on to my number 3. I'm going to talk about Kenley Jansen, the closer for the Los Angeles Dodgers. On Saturday night, he blew a save against the Houston Astros, which is not the team you want to blow a save against. He was the reliever of the month last month in August. In September, after that blown save against the Astros, he had an ERA north of 17. So he's been struggling a lot his last few outings. And normally I probably wouldn't be, super picky about Kenley Jansen, but last season he seemed to slow down. He had a huge dip in his velocity, was not the same closer that we've seen the last few seasons. He's the franchise leader in saves. He has been one of the best consistent relievers in baseball in the last, 6, 7, 8 years. So he has a pretty long leash, I think, on that closer position. But Alex, if you were Dave Roberts or even just as a Dodger fan, do you trust Kenley Jansen as the Dodgers closer still?
Trust is an interesting word. I think you still have to believe in the stuff because if you don't, that's an issue. If you're Dave Roberts, there are guys in that bullpen that have succeeded in the closer role before. Specifically, Blake Trinan was nasty for the A's a couple years ago. I think if he had been, good but not great in the first month of the season, and then had shown up as awful as he was his last, say 4 outings, it'd be a way different ball game. But because he was the NL reliever of the month, sometimes guys just lose it for a week or two. No one's going to play their perfect game every single time. Obviously, for closers in base, they're under a microscope because they get one inning. If they don't do their job, their team possibly, it's almost their fault if they lose that game. That Astros one, though, specifically that you're talking about, was awful. I was watching that one live. He looked bad. He pretty much said after the game, he's like, I wasn't feeling it. I didn't feel great. It was, I was miserable to be out there. But as we speak, he's about to come in to close it, hopefully for the Dodgers here down there in San Diego. So we'll see what happens. By the end of your segment, I could have changed my mind and said, fuck it, I'm done with him.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It's pretty crazy timing because we're about a minute away from him throwing the first pitch of the bottom of the 9th inning. Got a 2-run lead there in San Diego. Big game, big series for the Dodgers and Padres. I think probably the best new rivalry in sports right now. It's a great fight for that division in the West. All right, but moving on to my number 2 oh shit moment. Alec Mills threw a no-hitter for the Chicago Cubs on Sunday against the Milwaukee Brewers in only his 15th career start. What really makes this no-hitter interesting is it was not really a typically dominated outing by a pitcher. He only had 5 strikeouts. His fastest pitch was only clocked at 91 miles per hour and only got 5 swings and misses the entire game. So this guy was just mixing it up, throwing that curve, throwing that slider, getting weak contact. Another really cool thing about Alec Mills, he was a walk-on at University of Tennessee Martin. So this guy was not recruited out of high school. Basically walked up to the coach and told him, I want to try out. Tried out, was good enough to make the team. And he got drafted by Kansas City in 2012, worked his way up to the minor leagues, got cut by Kansas City in 2017, got picked up by the Cubs, made his way to the big leagues, and throws a no-hitter last Sunday. So you gotta love a story like that. I think it's pretty awesome. It was a great game to watch. It's a beautifully pitched game. Games that are pitched like that aren't, he's not striking out every batter, which is also great to watch. But guys that can do it with less than elite stuff is an amazing feat, and that's why I think this no-hitter is super impressive. So congrats to Alec Mills. Eric, I wanted to ask you another thing I kind of thought of was we've had 2 no-hitters so far this season without fans in the stands. And I think that brings up an interesting point for me. On the mental side of things, I think as you get in that 7th inning, you got no hits, even if you're the visiting pitcher or not, you can feel the anxiety and the pressure, I think, from the whole crowd. And I think that can, either break you or, it can feed you mentally. So just curious, I just want to get your opinion on this. Do you think it makes it harder or easier mentally to throw a no-hitter when there are no fans?
I think it makes it easier to throw a no-hitter with no fans. Basically, going off what you just said, you don't have distractions in the crowd. You don't have people yelling at you. You don't have a bunch of other shit going on around you. I think it's a little bit easier to do that. I think being a baseball pitcher is probably one of the toughest mentally positions there is in all of sports, behind a hockey goalie and behind a professional golfer. So,
just keep bringing the golf up. I love it.
There's a lot of mental toughness in those 3 positions. I would say the top 3 mentally tough positions of all sports.
Right on.
Probably could throw a quarterback in there.
Yeah, UB.
Yeah, probably that too.
All right, my number 1 oh shit moment of the week. Matt Chapman, the A's all-star third baseman, is out for the season. Huge blow for the Oakland A's. Strained his right hip. He's going to undergo season-ending surgery. This year, he was hitting 10 home runs, 25 RBIs. His average isn't what it normally was, but he's still a huge staple of that lineup. Also, a huge loss for them on the defensive end. This guy's won 2 Gold Gloves and a Platinum Glove, which goes to the best overall defender in the game. So that's a big loss. The A's did sign former All-Star Jake Lamb. Previously played for Arizona, got cut by them. He hasn't been the same Jake Lamb the last couple of seasons, but he has potential to be pretty good. Currently, the A's are pretty set right now to win this division. They're 6.5 games ahead of the Astros. So they're most likely going to make the playoffs, but I think this is a big blow for a deep run to
Ooh, shit.
a guy like Matt Chapman.
Tradon.
What was that? Who won?
Islanders moving on to the next game.
I'm behind, guy.
Oh, bummer. All right, well, breaking news. Islanders win. They survive.
Sorry, Tyler.
So they're behind 3-2. All good, man. But that brings me back, James. I want to ask you this question. How badly does this injury hurt the A's chances of making a deep postseason run?
I actually don't think it hurts him that much, to be honest. It hurts him, but not as much as you think. Mainly because they made a huge trade at the deadline for somebody that can play third base, who can play pretty much all infield positions, and that's Tommy La Stella from the Angels. That was right at the trade deadline. He was an all-star last season before breaking his leg. He was one of the few bright spots that the Angels had this last season, and they traded him away to the A's, which hurts me. You talked about how Matt Chapman had declining averages, declining stats this year and all that, but he still had a WAR of 1.1, which led the A's. On defense, like you mentioned, he's really, really good. Tommy La Stella, though, his averages are better than Matt Chapman's. Right now, he's averaging 276. Matt Chapman only averaged 232. Tommy La Stella has 26 runs, 42 hits, 22 RBIs, and 5 home runs. On the flip side of that, Matt Chapman only had 22 runs, 30 hits, and 25 RBIs. He did also have 10 home runs. But the fact of the matter is, Tommy La Stella is somebody who's capable of stepping in and filling that bat in the lineup. Defensively, I'm not so sure. Matt Chapman is one of the best defending third baseman in the league, hands down. And it's going to be hard to replicate that. But when it comes to just batting and keeping bats alive and scoring, I think Tommy La Stella is there and can make a good impact.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with you. I think if this one does sting, it does hurt. I still think this team has great depth, as you mentioned. They're one of the best teams in baseball right now. I think they got a good shot at making the League Championship Series, possibly even making the World Series, even without Matt Chapman. But it does hurt. He is probably the face of that franchise. So big loss there for the A's. So I just wanted to throw in a couple honorable mentions before I wrap up here. Last week on the podcast, I called out the Yankees for losing 15 out of 20. Ever since I called them on the podcast, they've gone 6-0. They're back up into second place in their division after scoring 20 runs against the Blue Jays tonight. So you're welcome,
20?
Yankees.
2-0?
20 runs tonight.
Wow.
TLDR bump, boy.
That is the TLDR bump. You're welcome, Yankees fans. Number 2.
Anybody else want a TLDR bump?
Yeah.
The Niners did horrible.
Yeah, Niners, what the fuck? You got to step your shit up or you're going to miss the playoffs, guys. Come on.
James, are you worried about our bet that the Rams are going to make the playoffs?
A little bit right now. It's week 1, but yeah, a little bit.
And then real quickly, MLB announced their postseason schedule, which includes a few bubbles. It will start September 29th. The first wildcard round will be played at the higher team stadium. After that, they're moving into 4 separate bubbles for the division round. Houston and Arlington for the National League, San Diego, LA for the American League. The LCS, the National League, will play in Arlington. The American League will be played in San Diego, and the World Series will be played in Arlington, Texas at the brand new Globe Life Field. And there's also a possibility that fans might be allowed a limited capacity for the LCS and World Series. So look out for that. MLB, the bubble is coming. Other than that, Alex, that's all I got.
All right, Tyler, your oh shit moments are fire as always. We got one segment left. Tradon, you're going to finish up hockey. We kind of jumped into it a little bit during the middle of that last one, which is okay, but we could talk about that game between Tampa and New York. And then we can also talk about the Dallas Stars moving on. We'll be right back, boys. All right, we're back. Traded. We're talking hockey. As we just mentioned, Eric screamed. Some stuff happened. Why don't you talk about that game? And we'll talk about now one team moving on.
Yeah. Well, we'll start with the series that, well, I thought was going to end tonight. Did not. The Tampa Bay New York Islanders series. Tampa Bay now leads 3-2 with the win by the Islanders, forcing Game 6. We got a beautiful overtime goal from Jordan Eberle after an interesting game where you saw a lot of shots, great goaltending. A nice 1-1 game. The Bolts did score a second goal, but they were clearly offside. That was a good challenge. That was really far offside. But we got goals from Victor Hedman, which is the third of the series. Victor Hedman might as well just be considered the greatest defenseman in our game right now. He is just unbelievable. But hey, I mean, got to hand it to the Islanders. They came back. I guess my first question to everybody right now, as it stands, I'm gonna go around. Do you see the Islanders winning 2 games in a row still, Tyler?
I mean, yeah, they can. I think hockey, you see it pretty consistently every year. There's teams that come back from 3-1, even 3-0 deficits from time to time. Mm-hmm. This Islanders team, as you mentioned several times, is a stingy team. And if there's – I can fully see this series going 7, and then anything can happen in a Game 7. I still think the Lightning will pull it off in one of these next 2 games, but I'm a little nervous for the Lightning right now after that game.
What about you, Eric?
I agree with Tyler. Is that the Lightning's first OT loss in the bubble?
I believe so.
Yeah, so things are changing. I think that the Islanders, of course, in this fashion, winning it that way, now have a ton of momentum going into that Game 6, and I think they could push it to Game 7.
So you believe in momentum from game to game? I mean, some people do, some people don't. I
believe in just that the team that hasn't lost in overtime once yet in the bubble just did. Now it may be in the back of their heads. Who knows? Islanders aren't gonna let up.
Alex, what about you, man?
No. I'm calling it right now. Tampa will win the next game, and this will be over.
All right. I'm more on that camp. What about you, James?
Yeah, I agree with you and Alex here. I think Tampa Bay is just too good. I think they take this as motivation. Uh, I think they're taking it as disrespect to them, the fact that they lost, because they fucked up. They're a better team than that, and they just didn't perform up to their standards, and that's where they lost. And so I think they're going to take that to heart and just use that as motivation to absolutely pummel the Islanders next game.
Yeah. I still find it interesting. I mean, this is going to be kind of a tale of two series that kind of are the same type of feel. Lightning, in most of that game, I watched most of it. They poured it on. I mean, they were owning the puck, owning the zone. They had way more shots. Very similar to what we see on the other side. But that team that didn't have the shots won the series. So I guess anything's possible. But in my opinion, just the way that the Bolts have, so their forwards are just killer. Their top forwards are just killer. So let me give you some notable stats. The Bolts shots throughout for that now 5 games. The Bolts are beating the Isles in shots 165 to 138 and goals 18 to 11. The Bolts have a much better shooting percentage and have a much better plus minus between their players. Vasilevsky is putting up a solid performance, not .93 save percentage, 8 goals against. Well, I guess now 10 goals against. And he has 2 penalty minutes. I haven't looked it up, but I want to know what the hell he got a penalty for. Varlamov and Greiss together have a .8. This is before today's game, mind you. Have a .874 save percentage. Greiss was lit up, letting in 3 on 9 shots for a .667. So he had a pretty rough relief in that 8 goal game. Pretty tough. Here's my thing, boys. I mean, Jordan Eberle scored. We got to give him credit for that. But the top 6 matchup has just been massively outlauded. I mean, prior to this game anyway. Barzal, Anders Lee, Jordan Eberle had just combined for just 1 goal and 6 points. I think Anders Lee got an assist and Jordan Eberle got his goal. So I think they have now 8. But still now and still that's only 3 points in 4 games between the 3 of them. While you have Point, Palat, and Kucherov. Now I get that Braden Point was out 2 games and he was out tonight, but they have out-attempted 28 to 18, outshot 20 to 8, outchanced 17 to 11. I could go on, and they just have completely dominated. The Bolts finished their, interestingly, that game 3, where the Bolts actually lost that game. They amassed 62 hits, which was a club high for the group, which I think is interesting because I don't think we really expect the Tampa Bay Lightning to be a hitting team, but clearly they have that in them. So I think that that's an element that they can turn on and be them that they probably were was probably the reason they lost last year against the Blue Jackets. I won't get into the talks about, well, I guess we can, because I think we all expect the Islanders to be out. I just want to kind of go through some questions about the Islanders offseason. The Islanders will have $8.9 million of cap space available, but don't have a first or second round draft pick this year. They have older UFAs rolling off. Matthew Barzal's contract is up as a RFA. They have a couple other RFA signings that they need to get. But this question is going to be for Eric and James. Do you think the Islanders have a bright future? Should the Metro Division guys, feel these guys as a threat for the next few years? I mean, what do you guys like most about those teams, respectively, James?
I think for their style of play, they do. Typically, a lot of hockey teams try to get that big name, the guy who scores so many goals, super prolific, and all that. But for the Islanders, their style of play is dirty. I mean, not dirty, but it's hard nosed. They put the pedal to the metal. They grind it out, and they don't need a big name to win games. As you can see right now, their top scorers have 4 points in this game, in the series as a whole. And then on the flip side, Kucherov has 9 points in the series.
Yeah.
That's not the way they play. As long as that coach is still going to be the coach, they don't need a big name. And so I think their future will be bright based off of the style that they play right now.
Eric?
Yeah, totally agree. They did have a big name. His name was John Tavares. And look where he went, to a team that has done jack fucking shit. The Toronto Maple Leafs are a fucking joke. The Islanders, he didn't want to stay there. I get it. But then they bring in Barry Trotz, who just created a team full of grinders. And Barzal, You don't think they're going to re-sign him? They're going to re-sign him for sure. Like, he's the guy that gives that offensive spark to them, power play, everything. They're a team that we bring up every time. They're like that Western Kings style of hockey in the East right now. And it's frustrating to play against. I think they stick around for a few years and be a threat. Now people just are going to know about them a little more. That's the one thing.
I wonder now what the team would be like with John Tavares and the same team playing that same style of hockey. If A, he'd fit in, and if B, if he did, obviously they'd have a goal scorer, and I think they'd be even more of a threat than they already are. Tyler and Alex, speaking of Matthew Barzal, we're going to talk about him right now. So Tyler, Lou Lamoriello is the GM of the Islanders. He just won GM of the Year. It's considered one of the best yet most frugal GMs in the NHL. He does not sign players to contracts unless they've really done something. So in your opinion, how important will this contract signing of Barzal be? I mean, he's reached 2 back-to-back 60-point seasons after a solid 85-point season in 2017-2018 where he won the Calder Trophy. And though John Tavares was on the team then. How important is this guy to tie up long-term? Do you think he is the face of the team, or do you see someone else as the most important player for this team?
Lock him up. Give him the money he wants. Give him the money he deserves. I think you got to have an anchor, a face of your franchise, no matter what team you are. If you want to be successful, I think you just got to have that star guy that's locked up long term. And for me, it's for the Islanders, it's Barzal.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I look at Mark Scheifele's contract, similar numbers, similar style of play. I think that they are very close. He's getting $6.125 million per year for 8 years. He's in 4 years into that, and I think that it is going to be close. And so, Alex, you are Matthew Barzal, Calder Trophy winner of 2018. Do you take one of the two deals? Do you take a 4-year deal at $6 million a year, knowing that you'll be entering your prime, your UFA eligibility, where you can ink a massive deal if you perform very well, but you risk failing to perform, getting hurt, and you may not get something big? Or do you ink that $8 million deal at 6.125 that walks you past your prime years, but you're inked for $49 million guaranteed dollars?
God, that's a tough one. I think I'd go for the short one, especially with hockey. Injuries are a huge part of the game. He's been the star of the team for these playoff series. And you know what? Like, you can't. Yeah, I take the 4 years because I want to play for Barry Trotz. That's what it comes down to. And if he decides that, like, Barry Trotz doesn't want to stay around, I don't believe his contract is for a super long period. You play for Barry Trotz because obviously he got you to the Eastern Conference Finals this year when no one expected you to do that. He's one of the best coaches in the league right now. You take the money and you bet on yourself. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think that players, when they take a little bit less money, I think that he'd actually be leaving some money on the table for them to sign maybe someone else who can actually score. They might actually have a good chance at making another Eastern Conference final for sure. It's just an interesting dynamic there. So, but hey, that's my series on the Islanders. We still have maybe two more games. But I think this group kind of thinks that Tampa Bay is gonna finish it out in the next two. Going on to the other side, Eric, you won some money, baby. Dallas Stars beat the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1 in the series. First of all, I want to ask, how much money did you win, or did you just not lose $100?
I actually just didn't lose $200. I broke even.
There you go.
Oh.
Well, I'm glad that happened. James, I got to give you a shout out. You were bullish on this team from the get-go. I mean, how do you feel?
Fantastic, man. To be honest, I didn't know much about the Stars, but then you assigned me the Stars to cover from round one, and then I became a fan since then. And so I've just been like pushing the Stars to win, and it's kind of working here.
Hey, let's dig into it a little. Leonard and Fleury. First of all, the shots were insane. Vegas shot 166 versus the Stars 118. The Golden Knights only put in I don't even know how many goals. It was putrid compared to their shots. Fleury and Leonard together had a .925 save percentage, .96 for Fleury, .914 for Leonard. 1 shutout, 9 goals against for a 1.8 goals against average, which is really good. That is solid numbers, guys. Anton Davi Kudobin, 0.95% save percentage, 1 shutout, 8 goals against. So there you go. They scored 8 goals versus the 9 that were put up by the Stars for a 1.6 goals against average. Yes, Jake Odinger, or however you say it, did play 17 minutes and faced 5 shots, but who really cares? To me, this series was all about goaltending in a good way and bad way. There was some drama between, Fleury and the whole thing with his agent. And Pete DeBoer, as a new coach, didn't give 2 shits who he was playing. He was going to play the hot hand over the loyalty, even though that, Fleury is kind of was the face of that organization. Flower has 2 more years left on his deal at $7 million per year, has a modified no trade clause. So he submits a 10 no-fly zone list of teams that he can't go to. And Leonard is at 29 years old, is a current free agent coming off a $5 million 1-year deal. He signed 3 back-to-back 1-year deals. So he hasn't seen a long-term contract since his entry level. So Eric and James, this question is for you guys. If you guys were Kelly McCrimmon, who's the GM, knowing what you know about Flower's drama, his impact as the face of the Golden Knights, and given the fact that Leonard has had a great season and deservingly stole the net from Marc-Andre Fleury, who would you go with next year? Do you trade Flower, enter him into the trade market, and offload the dollars to sign Leonard long term, or do you see a chance that Leonard would take less than Flower? Do you see any chance that Leonard would take less than Flower, allowing the team to bring back both, or do you stick with Flower and let Leonard test free agency? Eric.
You keep Marc-Andre Fleury. The guy got him to the Stanley Cup in their first season ever. The guy's won 2 or 3 Stanley Cups with the Penguins already. 2. He's been called upon before for the big moments, and he shines in them. Yeah, he had his whole drama with his agent. Throw that shit aside and keep him. Leonard is good, and I like the guy. He's got a good story and an upbringing and everything. But, Leonard has been getting shopped around the NHL most of his career. I keep Fleury.
James?
I disagree with you 100% there. I think the younger goaltender, mainly because they're trying to start a dynasty, aren't you? This is like what Alex was saying. He bet on himself. He had a couple 1-year deals back to back to back, and now it's time for him to cash in. He performed really well during this entire playoffs. He got traded from an team to a great team, and he did well. He bet on himself. It paid off. Give him the money he deserves. Give him a ton of years too. Like he could be a goaltender there for a long time because he's only 29 years old.
Yeah.
Marc-Andre Fleury is 75. I don't know. He's old, but he's gonna be done soon, man. You can't give that guy that much money right now. I don't know Leonard's character at all. I don't know if he'd be willing to take a pay cut to keep both. But in a perfect world, that's what would happen. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's 2020, and this world kind of sucks right now. So Marc-Andre Fleury has been fantastic for the Knights, but if I was a GM, I'd trade him away. And it's with a heavy heart. I have a ton of respect for that guy, for that franchise, but I look towards the future.
No, I get it. I actually agree with you on that one. Leonard was played fantastic, and knowing the goalie market this year, there's no way in hell he's taking a pay cut. He can go literally anywhere and cash in. Alex and Tyler, before we move on to the Dallas Stars, the Vegas Golden Knights had very little problems defending goals. I would say giving up nine goals in 5 games is better than average. I don't know how many of those were empty nets, but regardless, that's pretty freaking solid. Although they were only able to muster up 8 on 166 shots. Tough shooting percentage for a team that has one of the best zone times I've ever seen in the last 2 playoff series. In the regular season, they had an above-average goals for, so that was interesting. Do you think this team is missing a key goal scorer or finisher, or do you chalk this up to you ran into 2 Hulk goaltenders? Or is that just how hockey goes? Sometimes you have offense, and sometimes it runs out. Alex?
Okay, so 2 things first. Fleury has won 3 cups with the Penguins.
You're right, he has.
2, I'm obviously a fucking idiot because I picked the Knights to win in 5 during our last podcast. So that went completely wrong for me. So shout out to me for being an idiot.
No, you're not an idiot. I mean, they outplayed them big time. I mean, I'm sorry. They did.
But to answer your actual question, in that first season where Vegas just kind of stormed the West, William Karlsson was decided to just be like, just kidding, I'm going to be a top goal scorer in the league. And I feel like, I know I don't pay attention to the Knights. They're not my team. I hate them. So I'm not upset that they're not in it. But he has seemed to sort of disappear. And, coming back to this, generally the Knights are a team of players that other teams didn't want. They pretty much just said, hey, here you go. Yeah, they got big names like Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty. But yet to bring it all back together, yes, they need one big goal, or they're a team of scrappy players that together can be great. But sometimes you need that Sid Crosby, that Connor McDavid, that Alexander Ovechkin, that's Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov. Sometimes you need those guys, and I don't think the Knights have a player like that. And sometimes you do in the playoffs. You need one guy to just step up and carry your team.
Yeah. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I would agree. I didn't think the Knights really needed that going into this series. I thought they were playing well with the mix that they had. Yeah, they didn't have that, high-end, top 5 NHL goal scorer. But you see plenty of teams that can win without that. So I think it was just one of these series where their offense just kind of went cold. But obviously, I think with today's NHL, having a lot of talent and skill and speed on the offensive side is really, really important. I think they still have that. I still think they're pretty deep on offense. But, yeah, maybe they need just that one guy that's going to just light up the scoreboard for them most nights. No pun intended.
Yeah, I agree. I think they need to. I think they need to figure out their scoring, whether it's a new player or whether it's just learning to use their own guys to score.
Yeah.
Because I think their personnel is extremely good. They're very deep. They have some amazing players on there. Hey, I mean, I'm looking at you, James. You gave up Shea Theodore in the expansion draft, and he's turning out to be the next Rob Niedermeyer. Not a big deal. I'll just leave it there. Moving on to Dallas. This question is for James and Alex. Dallas will either play Tampa Bay or the Islanders in the Stanley Cup Final. We presumably it's going to be Tampa Bay. But this will be the first time where we see players not having to travel over multiple time zones to play each other in the finals, right? And we could see the quote-unquote best hockey we have seen ever due to the fact that they're going to be rested more. They don't have to deal with that travel. And they won't have distractions. And the playoffs have always generally been this war of attrition. Usually the final 2 teams are so dead, they're so dogged, and it can kind of turn into just kind of a battle as opposed to really, really good hockey, meaning, sexy hockey, good passing, that kind of stuff. Do you think we will see some of the best hockey due to the fact that you're adding this final prize, the Stanley Cup, into the bubble, that they're not having to deal with the same type of attrition that they're accustomed to seeing? Like, are we gonna see better hockey here, Alex?
I think so. Yeah. I'm expecting these guys to, whichever team comes out of the East to face Dallas, I expect both of those teams to just start flying out of the gates.
Yeah.
I typically, during a regular non-pandemic season, will go with the team that comes in last. I like to go with teams that are right in that hot hand, boom, they won a game 6, boom, they won a game 7, they're moving on to the next round. They're feeling it. Who knows this year? I'm expecting some great hockey. The travel, especially for, if it's say like Dallas and Tampa, or Dallas and New York, really, that's kind of the same difference travel wise. But now they don't have to travel. Yeah, I think the travel just saves their legs, saves their energy. It'll be really interesting to see, but I do think we see some really great hockey in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah. What about you, James?
I think a little yes, a little no. A little yes because, like you guys mentioned, the rest and everything. But no, because of the Stars' style of play. They're a pretty physical hockey team all the way through. And they're kind of like the Islanders, but not as much. We saw that in all the games that the Stars beat the Knights in. They're the more physical team. They're not afraid to give up their body. They go in for hits. They go in for hard hits. They're not afraid to throw punches. They put their body on the line all the time to block shots. They don't care. They want to win. And because I think they play that style of hockey, it's not as sexy as the perfect passes, just zigzagging across east, west, north, south, and then slaps from blue line. That's not what's going to work right now. That's their style of play. And while I think the rest is going to play a huge part of that, it's the style, the style and the characteristics of the players and the coach also play a part in that too.
I see that. I think it's going to be interesting. I think I actually agree with you guys both in some cases. I'm just excited to see what it's like to see rested hockey players in the Stanley Cup final. Final point in question for Eric and Tyler. Dallas will be the Stanley Cup final for the first time since 2000, which was 1 year after they won the Stanley Cup in what could otherwise be described as the most controversial Stanley Cup final win in NHL history. This team has been counted out multiple times by even many of us on this podcast, but they prove us wrong time and time again. Tyler, you mentioned that. The craziest thing about all that is the fact that Tyler Seguin is 9th in points on his team, has 8 in 19 games, 8 goals and 8 assists in 19 games and only 2 goals. Miro Heiskanen has been a beast, 22 points, 20 games, 5 goals. Jamie Benn has also been fantastic. Does this team have the ability to beat someone like Tampa, who we know can score, who's fast, who can play with an edge, and now all of a sudden, like they can start to put up hits as we see? If Seguin continues to remain off the score sheet, how confident are you in that the bottom 6 in Dallas can beat the bottom 6 in Tampa? Eric?
Still pretty confident in them. They took out a team that I thought was the most dangerous team in the Western Conference. That's exactly what you just described as the Lightning. They could hit, they could score, they could skate. And we've been counting them out all year. Sagan's like that kid on the fucking group project that always dicked around and never did anything, but they get an A on it. That's like how he's been throughout the whole bubble. So he still has time to turn it on. He's going to need to fucking turn it on, though, if they want to win. We said that for this series, and somehow he didn't. And Qdobin stood on his head, as we always say, saved their lives. So I still think they can get past Tampa with or without Seguin.
What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, clearly Seguin, him performing at his top level isn't important for this Dallas Star team. I think they got a lot of other options. But yeah, on paper, to me, it's like, yeah, Lightning should win this series. But I've said that with every other. I haven't picked the Stars to win once. So who fucking knows? The Stars team just keeps coming out and they keep winning, which is impressive. And as a sports fan, I love to see it. You know, my team's not in the playoffs right now, but I love those teams that are the underdogs and can be the underdogs all the way through. That'd be a great story. So. Yeah, I still think the Lightning are the better hockey team here. But like I said, with Stars, with their mojo, the way they're playing right now, they might be the best team left in this tournament.
We'll have to see. I watching this Tampa Bay team and watching what they can do, looking at their team. I know I said this about Vegas. I just don't see the Tampa Bay Lightning losing that series against the Dallas Stars. But I better not be too ingrained in that, because they've proven.
Because the Islanders will win in Game 7. That's why.
Fair enough. I will say, if in my opinion, if the Islanders end up winning, I think that Dallas will win the series for sure. I think that Dallas is the better team in that type of environment. I think they have better firepower, and I think that they'll be able to beat the Islanders in that sense. But that's all we got for hockey. Sorry it was long, but it's starting to end up, so you're not going to hear much from hockey in about 2 weeks.
That's so sad.
Oh, I know. All right, thank you, Tradon. Yeah, just like you said, by next week we will have the Stanley Cup final. Figure those two teams figured out. Basketball's winding down. Baseball will have a more clear picture on the postseason. Just a couple things, guys. Like we mentioned a couple podcasts, there's still time to register to vote. If I looked it up today, most of the states, you're allowed to register up to like the first week of October. So if you're 18 plus and you are and not registered to vote, please go do that. Other than that, please like, comment, subscribe on this podcast. If you hate us, let us know. If you like us, also let us know. If it's somewhere in the middle, let us know. Other than that, have a great week, guys. We'll see you back next Wednesday. All right. Night.